Welcome, my friends. In a world where we are often told that what we feel is incongruent, what we feel is incongruent to us is actually normal, and in a time where we are constantly adjusting to the new normal, it can feel really uncomfortable to step outside the flow, allow yourself to get your bearings, and rediscover your you normal. Welcome to You Normal. I am your host, Robina Bennion, and today I am honored and grateful to welcome my guest, Delfina Falco, who is the founder of Currency Wellness. Hello, Delfina.
Thank you, Robina. Hello, hello. I am so grateful to be here with you today and sharing this time and space together and bring awareness.
Oh, thank you. And it's a magical day. Like for us women who love numbers in general, our professions have been surrounded by numbers, but it is also 22, which is kind of magical. And so I'm really excited about that as well for some of you number people out there as well. So Delfina, before we get going, I know about you. I don't want to say all about you because I don't know all about you, but I would love for you to share with our guests just what it was that called you to create Currency Wellness.
Yes, thank you. Well, it was birthed 6 years ago as of January of this year. January 6th is my 6 year anniversary. And I'm very, very grateful and excited of the birthing of Currency Wellness. What brought me here is my own experience. As a mother, I'm a mother of two boys, ages 7 and 10. Um, I'm a former operations manager for Wells Fargo Bank. So when I transitioned into motherhood, it was a tough journey. It was a tough transition. And with my mind always being on the go, 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 and creating, mentoring, and developing a team, I didn't take it that easy being a stay at home mom. And so
Mm.
a lot of it, I fell into depression and, trying to find my way and navigate through the journey and to be grateful that I did and I do have that opportunity because I know many folks don't have that opportunity.
Mm.
So what brought me there was being able to reflect and trying to give myself more love. And what did that look like for me? So for me personally, I started to go for my walks with the kids. And I just started just walking. And that would be the
Mm.
beginning steps of what was birth. And as I continue to walk, I continue to nourish my mind. I love, love, love listening to Audible, reading. That's something that I have been hungry for the past 10 years of my life. Personal development, that's something I enjoy and I love growing. So for me, I started to dive into podcast. And
Mm.
gosh, we live in a time with so much information, so much data. And so for me personally, I would learn about all of these different things here to self develop. And those were the other beginning steps for me. And then financial wellness. The pillars that I have here is mental wellness, physical wellness, and financial. And for that area of the pillar, I have gone through some hard financial places in my life. I would say 13 years ago, I went into business with a former friend, and unfortunately, things didn't work out.
Mm.
And so being able to build assets once upon a time to then filing bankruptcy was a very, very hard lesson. And many of us, we go through pain. And the way I like to say it is pain equals change.
Mhm.
And some of us have high pain tolerance. And so those three pillars for me was something that I needed to focus on. So with the self love that I was practicing, a part of that was the mental, physical, and the financial wellness. And so as time went on and my kids are growing and I continue to practice that, the YMCA is one of the places I would go to every single day with my kids. So I would do my walks in nature. I believe nature is one of our best healing properties. And then I would go lift weights at the gym and or the YMCA. I don't like to call it a gym because it just feels so family
Mm.
oriented. It's different from the gym because I have
Yeah.
the gym. And so when I would go there, people started to see that I was a regular and they saw the consistency in what I was doing. And one of the directors of the YMCA asked me if I would want to teach a mommy and me class. And I
Mm.
was so excited. I was like, yes, what do I do? And I've never necessarily been a trainer nor a nutritionist, none of that. But what I did practice, it brought others to want to know more. And so when she asked me if I wanted to teach, I took it in, I reflected, and then I came back to her and I said, can I teach this mommy and me class around mental, physical, financial wellness? And so
Mm.
she takes it to her director, and they agreed. And so we started a pilot program around this. And so I took about 3 months before I presented what I was going to present. And the modules that I created was the psychology of spending, money management, credit report, credit repair, and checking account management. And
Mm.
the reason why is because being a stay-at-home mom, I started to think to myself, what can I do to help, to provide, to continue to nourish myself, to be able to then teach my children around these fundamentals. And so I took it upon myself to practice that in my home and then present the pilot program. And that was the beginning stages of Currency Wellness.
Wow. Wow. I mean, there's like a lot of amazingness in there, right? From going from the part of like we often teach to what we need the most, right? Like that's the easiest thing to teach, I believe. And but going back even to I think what you were saying about when you're just the birth when you give birth to a child, right? And it's no different than it doesn't have to be that you're giving birth to a child. It could be to a business. And probably if you reflect back on that, the whole process of like an idea, whatever business it was, or even, birthing new relationships, it is kind of this adjustment after, right? You can like, oh, I'm going to stay home. We're told like we should love to be able to stay home, but then other things like you said, like I'm so much like you where it's like, okay, I got to be doing, right? And so just being at peace and presence in that one thing that we've created can be a challenge if we're in the constant mode of creating or I think doing all the time, right?
Yes, and that's a practice that can be slowed down, but it takes action. And so
Mhm.
with all this knowledge and information and data we have going on, that's great. But what action are we really taking to slow down?
Yeah.
And I do hear I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. That's
Mhm.
where my life has changed. But being able to change our neuroplasticity, be able to be aware and mindful of what cycles are we putting ourselves back into, which is why my top pillar is mental wellness, because I
Yeah.
believe all of us, we're all experiencing this together, and especially the last 2 years of our life um, was a point for everyone to see that it doesn't matter what line of work we're in, everybody suffered. But the
Mhm.
question is where did you take that suffering? Did you take it as a tool, as a learning lesson to pick yourself back up and go at it? Or to stay in a place of depression, victimization? I'm guilty. I've been
Yeah.
there. And there are times that I find myself putting myself there and it's like, nope, nope, wake up, get back to it. And the being, like, how do you just be? It's difficult. I'm fully aware that, oh, 111, I love numbers, right? 111. Um, the part of just being is very difficult.
Yeah.
Not feeling that I have to do, and I have to continue to grow and create and take action. This is why I love nature. Nature, when I go out there and I'm at one, I slow down and I remind myself that a part of giving love to myself is slowing down.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm the same way. Like our paths are so blended, and that's why I love what you create. And we're in Elevate together, but it's like seeing each other is because I started after I left my career or transitioned out, I would say I became a behavioral money coach. And so it's a lot what you're talking about, right? With the patterns. And often if we're not talking about it, if we're not pausing to look at it, then we don't have the awareness of where the pattern is, right? So it is so blended. And I'm so much like you that sitting on a mat and meditating is not my place. It's more I get out in nature, and that's where I can feel everything fall into place. Like I talk about soul, self, and wealth, right? It's kind of like you have your mental, physical, and financial. They're very similar to me, but when I go out into nature, it's like that's where I find what I call my zone of alignment when they all three fall into place. And a lot of my stuff in my business has been born there, like in that conversation of just getting up and walking. And like you're talking about this last year, even for myself and what in my business is, but really that invitation for people to slow down, to look at those things where, whether you want to call it wellness or in alignment, they're not working. And some people do have a really high pain tolerance, like you said, right? Like they'll keep going and going, and the world is kind of that saying, "Hey, we're going to help you." In for my business, I say I believe every person has a moment when their soul will no longer be denied, and that's where that pain tolerance is. Like something comes through, and in that pain is where something beautiful can be born, if we allow ourselves space to create that. So I know that I am seeing it in what I'm creating with my clients, and I'm curious how maybe what you have been doing, either if you want to talk about what you do in currency wellness, or how it has maybe changed in this last year in a beautiful and unexpected way, in the last 2 years, maybe with your clients and how you're helping them, or maybe personally, one of the two, whatever you feel called to share.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I thought my vision was education, was to teach, was to have workshops, which I have prior to the pandemic. I had several workshops in person, but in my vision, virtual is where I wanted to go because I believe that many of us are struggling in the embarrassing piece of where we are in our journey of financials, our relationship with money, not being aware of it. So for me personally, that's where I love bringing this awareness to humanity. Now, when I was doing that, I'm very grateful that folks have reached out to me and needing help in their businesses. And that area of opportunity was bookkeeping.
Mhm.
And so I'm very blessed. Another sister of ours is Mariette Martinez,
Yes.
and I met Mariette about, oh my gosh, 5 years ago. And it was the biggest blessing because it goes back to everything aligning. I do believe everything happens in life for a reason, and it happens for us. So
Yeah.
going back to the mind, where we can put ourselves in a perpetual cycle of destruction, or we can put ourselves in a cycle of learning and growing. And so for me, that's what I wanted. I wanted to continue to learn from my failures. I wanted to continue to forgive myself, to love myself, to share this with others. And so as I was being hired for bookkeeping, I still brought in the principles, my pillars into our coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy because, some of my clients are males and, coming from a woman, right? It's not always easy hearing and being able to take constructive criticism. And so thank God that the clients I do work with, they are coachable. They are receptive. It wasn't easy, but as they continue to see that I was here to truly help them, I'm not just a bookkeeper. And I say that like that because we can hire folks to help us and to give us reports of what is needed. But then what separates me is really having those one-on-one times and speaking from a place of mental, physical, financial wellness because
Mm-hmm.
I'm mirroring the people that are coming to me. These
Right.
are amazing entrepreneurs, go-getters, go-givers, and you put that together and we're just like at the edge of our seat. But then also being in a place where being a former bank manager and living in the times of 2007 and 8 when the market crashed, right? And having that
Yeah.
clientele that are millionaires. And yet these millionaires came to a place of depression. Came and it breaks my heart because I've even had a couple clients that unfortunately are no longer with us because they felt that the way out was taking their own life. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is serious. It's an intimate relationship that we're having here with money. And everyone has a different relationship with money because of our upbringing, because of our experience, because of where we're currently at, based upon, you know, now as a collective. Because
Yeah.
before, I'd be able to bring this to people's attention based upon my experience, my failures, my
Right.
bankruptcy. But now I'm able to speak it and be like, okay, I know I'm not alone because all of us experienced this in the last 2 years. But
Yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I remember at the beginning, after we'd kind of walked through it, is like everyone was talking about it and how it had provided this equal playing field almost because it was like, oh, did you apply for the PPP loan? Oh, are you on unemployment? Or, how is your business? Like, it became more of a conversation of like the financial components, which normally nobody would ever say that, right? Oh, how is your business? Are you on the brink of bankruptcy? Oh yeah, me too. So it opened up this conversation, but what you pointed out is so true. And I share the same things with my clients is um I can have clients that are millionaires and I'm having the same conversations with people who are not making very much money at all in their business, like by maybe society's terms, right? I think
Right.
that's also a place that we can change the conversation because just because you want to go into business for yourself or you're working somewhere, and if you're making, I'm going to say, I don't know, $30,000 a year, it doesn't mean that you're not successful, right? It's just a lot of times, oh, are you going to do $1 million business? That's kind of the term that will get thrown out there, either a 6-figure or 7-figure, right? But at the end of the day, regardless of your economics, there's people with all kinds of emotions around money, I like to say, but really it's not the money. And I'm sure that's what you find as well is if you strip away the money, those emotions are there. And I'll tell people, I'll say to people like it's the cover story, or people don't get divorced because of money. They get divorced because of their emotions around money. And it's a mirror, right? Like it's mirroring back to us something that's in ourselves. And and I'm reminded when I started my business and I really started thinking about a lot of things, and probably even before I started my business, is looking at, like you said, we're the collective, right? What's in another person is in me. So I'm only one step away from making a decision that could land me in jail, for example, right? Or one step away that could put me, that could bankrupt me. That's often where our mind goes. But I also remind myself, yeah, but I'm one step away from something that could turn me into a millionaire if you want to go in that direction. So like you're saying is redirecting that perspective and then stopping to say, what is this really bringing up in me? What am I really feeling? What am I really believing about myself? Where is this really coming from? And again, going back to that's what we've been provided in the past couple of years. But I think also, like for you, probably with, that thing with your business partner, former business partner,
Mhm.
becoming a mother, running your business as it is now, I think all of those give us the opportunity to explore that uncomfortable, especially as financial advisors, in a bigger sense, being a CPA.
Yeah.
And um, kind of circling back though to what you said with your clients now, is a lot of times, and I've experienced this too. When I transitioned out of public accounting, I opened up a bookkeeping / consulting to figure out what path I was going. But I think that what makes a difference is to ask the questions differently from our clients. And I think that's what I heard you say, is now when you're working with those clients, they're expecting a bookkeeper, and they're getting a lot more because we're asking the questions that people are not usually asking them when it comes to their business.
Yes, it's those uncomfortable questions that none of us want to face. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really being honest with ourselves. And that's the hardest thing, right? Like once you are hiring someone to help you with your financials, they're seeing everything. And, I know it can be embarrassing. You feel ashamed. But I'm human. I have vices of my own. I have problems too. There's so many ways we can put that where if we had if we have more people that are willing to be open and being able to see that mirror that we're no different from each other, it'll help
Mm-hmm.
us come to the place of being able to open up and be able to dive in and peel the onion. Okay, why is it that I have this type of relationship with my money? Because you mentioned six figures, seven figures, millionaires. I've seen it all,
Yeah.
paycheck to paycheck, paycheck to paycheck as a millionaire. And you're thinking, well, how can you? Oh, trust me, credit can get you there. You can put
Yeah.
everything on credit and you can seem like you got it all together, but you're in debt. $1 million homes, Ferraris, credit cards, lavish, everything. I'm not knocking it because I like the good stuff too. But
Yeah.
I had a moment of having the good stuff and then hitting rock bottom, my rock bottom. Man, talk about starting from scratch. Thank
Yeah.
goodness my mama taught me how to live off of beans and rice because I took myself right back to that and top ramen here.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was able to see, okay, when the going gets tough and now the currency is affected, right? Where you are not in the place that you once were, how long are you going to sit in that? How long are you going to be in that position? Because we have the tools. It's
Mm-hmm.
here and it's here. Our mind and heart coherence, I believe for myself, has been the key navigator to help me, to bring me forward because I want better. I could sit in a space where I filed bankruptcy, lost all my assets, um, and just be stuck in that. But I chose not to. I chose,
Yeah.
and this is why these pillars are so important for me. And I want to bring this awareness to others because you're not alone. You can do this. It doesn't matter who you are, that you can bring yourself to a place to nurture yourself, to love yourself, and take the baby steps that we need to help not only ourselves, because that's first, but then our family and then
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah. Oh God, I agree with all of what you were saying. And it's so important. I think that's the part of like even where this you normal came up is like the more that I explore about myself and the things that I thought I only was encountering, it was like, oh, that's actually the normal. The normal is like that I tried to achieve, what I tried to become, what I thought that I was supposed to be based upon what everyone else was telling me, but nobody else was telling me their truth. Nobody was getting vulnerable and real about where they were. It's kind of like someone said something about doctors, right? Like because they have all this debt, it's like they could be the poorest rich person because of that debt. And for me, it's like that we have these conversations. And that's what I'm so passionate about doing, is like, let's talk about money. Let's talk about these feelings and being vulnerable, which is a strength. I thought of vulnerability as total weakness. I'm like, I'm not going to show any vulnerability because that's just weak. But finding that there's actually a lot of strength in doing that, because those people who are embarrassed to say where they're at, like they have no idea what their money is doing, because there's this perception as a business owner or having the house and the cars that you have it figured out, is there are a lot of people who feel that way, are in their same place. And by the way, it's not because there's something wrong with you. A lot of it is like, how did you grow up? What is your life experience? It's I know for myself as a CPA, I always had credit card debt, but I always had money in the savings that was bigger than my debt, but there was like this thing that was happening, and I won't go into it, where it was like, that was providing me security, because I was living from that place. Well, if I take all of my money and I pay off my credit card, then I have less money in savings. Right. And so having that security, which was something that was much deeper. And again, as I left my profession, I was like, why is my money not more reflective of my knowledge? If I'm a CPA and everyone expects me to have it all dialed in and figured out, like, I can't tell you how many people said to me, I bet you balance your checkbook every month and you have your retirement fully funded and your college education, right? And I'm like, and so then the more I would hear it, the worse I would feel, because then I would feel like a fraud. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, after doing this and understanding where my own money patterns came from, my own beliefs that turn into my behaviors, and I'm still working through them just as well. I've gone through really hard spots in my own business, and looking at that and going, oh, okay, I figured it out. And I always tell people, I went to school to learn accounting, and then I got a degree to learn taxes, not the behavioral aspect of money. That didn't come until much later. So there is a difference. But again, coming back to, I think the more that we talk about it, and that probably is why you're so effective with your clients too, is like, you've been there and and it's that grit, right? Like, you could be stuck in that, but that grit kind of keeps you going back, catch traction again, because not that there is better or you want better, but that you can create better, right?
Right. Right. Yes. And, it's not easy, as I sit this and share with you where the birth of Currency Wellness, and to where I'm at today, I feel rich. I do. And a rich is a state of where you put yourself in. One day I was at the beach and I was on my laptop working in my car. And as I'm talking to my client, I see dolphins swimming by. And
Mm.
at that moment in time, 2 years ago, I felt I made it. I made it. Because in my mind, the vision was, oh, it would be awesome to be able to work at the beach or work anywhere and be remote. And when you're in it, when you're in the storm, when you're helping and serving others, and you're trying your best to practice what you preach, you don't seem to see the blessings.
Mhm.
And as I had that moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. Like, my dreams have come true. I'm on the phone, my kids are at school, I'm at the beach, I'm seeing the dolphins, I'm working. It was just an all around experience of gratitude. And
Mhm.
so when we talk about numbers, it doesn't matter how much money we make, it's what we do with it. And it
Yeah.
goes back to our relationship. And then it goes back to our love language, because many of us, once again, were brought up differently in poverty, perhaps in a family that does have the means for everything. So based upon those relationships is how you're going to navigate through life. And scarcity, I come from poverty, so of course I was scared. And then going through bankruptcy, man, that was a tough one, because it's like, hello, how are you, a former bank manager, and you're bankrupt? But it goes back to making choices. It's very important, and being mindful of those choices we make. We all seem to be reactive when it comes to emotion. And so that's the area of opportunity as a collective. it's like, okay, we feel the emotion, we react. Some of us feel the emotion and go inward and don't react. I know for myself, I react. So I have to be more aware of how I'm feeling and
Mhm.
allowing that feeling to go through me instead of it being me and consume me. Um, and currently I've been 6 months now separated from my partner. And so that's another conversation that needs to be brought up. As hard as it is, because the reality now is co-parenting.
Mhm.
And how do you navigate through that on top of financials and being an entrepreneur and all these learning lessons that keep coming at us? And
Yeah.
so, you mentioned, I love what you said. A lot of people divorce because of, say, financials, but you said it was the
Emotions around money.
the emotions around money. And it's so true. It's in also communication. Oh
Mhm.
man, as humans, we have such a hard time communicating. And
Well, we're often communicating from that space of a child, right? And I don't mean that people are being childish. It's just they're like around money, right? So you're going through about a bunch of transitions. So even you who works with people around mental and physical and financial wellness, you can still help them, but then your own personal journey is different because I have found, at least for myself, there are pieces that get brought up in that, right? It's kind of that fight, flight, or freeze. And we're not always making, I'll say me, I'm not always making the healthiest of choices because when I get into that survival mode, it could kick me back to something that happened when I was younger because I grew up with not a lot, right? Like so many people, we grow up in poverty and like we're going to do something different, but it still doesn't change that there are these life experiences that then in turn show up in our money, right? Like I've walked through divorce before. And even now, like the ways that I react from fear, it's what I say. I respond from love and I react from fear. And even those can come up in me. And as much as I do this, I'm not always aware of them. That's why I even have my own coach to support me is like, where is that coming from? And like you said, it's like, okay, I'm feeling that coming up and I can either outburst at somebody because I feel like that's going to just like then it gets it out of my system, right? It's because if I'm just holding it all in versus like, I'm really feeling this. And what is it that I'm feeling? And it could be what is it that I'm believing? There's two different things. And but then it's like you going back to what you said is making that choice, that responsible choice. And how can I come at it this differently? And I like to ask when I'm in my group, like, well, if that's not true, what else is? So I ask myself, okay, Robina, like, if that's not true, then what else is? And how might you respond in a different way than just react from that place of fear and survival and wanting to create safety? And I think a great example of that is um, walking in my business and creating it. And then my husband, the company he worked for, leaving the state. And next thing you know, we're here I am in this new business and my husband's without a job. And there's a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay our mortgage? How am I going to feed my kids? What are we, just like it spirals. And then it's just like, and I love the name of your business, Currency, because it's like, what is that flow? What is that current that I'm creating in this moment? And right now it's from fear. And so how can I transition that and flow into the current of like belief and trust and like Joe Dispenza's work and know there is so much abundance out there in the world. And so, and in me. And how do I tap into that versus create from fear? Because I've learned really well throughout my time when I create from fear, it's like this controlled and chaos and it makes me very small. But when I create from that different place of knowing that abundance with me, it feels so much more expansive and open. And I actually create way more than I thought that I would. And I don't know that that necessarily ties into what you're saying, but I'm kind of bringing it back to sometimes we are acting from that child within that wants that security and safety. And it is that reprogramming of like, no, we're safe. I tell myself that all the time. You're safe. It's okay. You're safe. All's good. So
Yes.
I don't know for you and how like that shows up, or even if you feel called to share something different, please, whatever direction you'd like to take that.
The inner child, I like that you brought that up. I think a lot of us have been raised in a tough environment
Mm,
where that child in us is now learning that as an adult. And how do we react? And this is why mindfulness is one of my main practices in learning and growing, because as much as I would like to say I'm always mindful, there are times where the mind just, the subconscious just kind of goes because it's a habit. It's
mm,
something I am used to. But when I catch it, I correct it. Not all the time, but I do try my best. And so this current time that I'm in, this space I'm in, of being, a single parent and, co-parenting and being an entrepreneur, it gets scary. It does, because there's no promises. And we've all experienced that in the last 2 years. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do with the tools we have? What are we going to do with the lessons we've learned? Are
mm.
we going to continue to repeat the cycle, or are we going to change it up and create a different environment for us?
Yeah.
And so, at times it's hard, but I'm trying day by day
Yeah.
with God's blessing.
Well, and I'm curious too, because you said something, and I'm always like, I always am listening to what words people use. And I like, even the single parent, there's so much energy in that. So, how do we like transition our wording to say, I'm a parent, right? Like, because I feel like that single carries weight, that it makes it more of a struggle. So then it's like, embracing like I'm an independent parent, maybe, right? Like, changing that language up, that is um feels more expansive and supportive than maybe I don't know what other term it may be, but you know what I'm saying is like, I listen for the words that we use and what's the most supportive. um
Absolutely. Yes. And
one
it's those little words that make a big difference.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Because I say that because I hear so many people say, "Oh, I'm a single parent," or "I've been divorced for a year." And I'm like, "Well, no, you've been single for a year." Like, there's another way that we can go about that. And I don't know. I'm all about how can we reframe things and change it up. But I am curious because I don't want to lose this. And I think that it's really important because I know in the work that I do, people say, someone say, "Oh, I bet you meditate all the time and you do this and you've got it all figured out, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm like you. Like, I struggle. I have my dark days. I have anxiety some days that keeps me from moving forward." And by the way, when we're doing work on ourselves, at least for me, it does bring that stuff up. It's not like I get off the phone with my coach and I'm like, "Okay, it's a great day. I healed that." It's like, oh, like, okay, that hurt that I haven't been allowing myself to feel for a long time is now showing up. And now I'm getting to know what that you normal really is, right? Like, I'm getting to know, like, I have a relationship with myself. So I'm
Right.
curious for you, when you get in that kind of place of you're feeling your feelings, you're feeling your life, right? You're processing however you want to define it, and you don't want to get up and you don't want to go outside or do whatever. Like, how do you like move through that? For me, I sit in it sometimes. Other times I might reach out to someone, or maybe I go for a walk or I pet my dog. I don't know. Like, it's different. But how do you help yourself move through it when it's just you?
Great question. It's still a work in progress. I stopped watching TV for 10 years now. It's been about 10 years. And so my form of information is, practically in the last 10 years, social media came up, right? 10, 11 years ago. So I am very mindful in what information I put into my mind. It starts there, because as it is, our mind can be destructive and we can put ourselves in a loop. So when some folks say, "Do you sit there and like curl up in a ball and be in your bed for days?" I don't do that. I go to nature.
Mm,
And I do that because I believe it's a part of the healing process. And so when I am stuck in either victimization or feeling sorry for myself, if I have my children with me, let's go together. Let's go to the beach. Let's go to the park. Let's go around the corner. If the children are not with me, then I go by myself and I choose to put myself in that position to allow myself to feel the pain and to allow it to go through me and rejoice myself in gratitude for this lovely planet we have. I know it sounds so cliche, but man, I love nature. And, I have faith that our source did it for a reason. When I'm in that destructive state, I listen to meditation music. I listen to different type of frequencies. There's different type of frequencies we can listen to. Audible, that is like my go-to. I've listened to hundreds of books in the past 7 years of my life, and they revolve around mental, physical, and financial. So I'm constantly nourishing the mind around that. But once again, what separates information and data is action, is choices. And so every day I have a choice. I have a choice to sit in my depression or pick myself up.
Yeah.
And I choose to pick myself up as hard as it is. And don't get me wrong, the power of others. Our source has given us each other to help one another. And, there's this book of Henry Cloud, I think his name, Dr. Henry Cloud, and it's called The Power of Others. And I think I have that correct. I got to check that one. But that was eye-opening for me because many times some folks don't like to reach out for help or go get a coach or go get counseling. I love counseling. I love having a coach. Not everyone has the means to do it. Well, guess what? We live in times now where you can YouTube it, you can put on an Audible, and there's many, many practitioners out there that are giving so much useful tools and information. So now more than ever, we can go inward and we can choose to help ourselves if we cannot afford to go get that help. And when you have that other person, say if you are able to have someone, an actual human in your life, it's very important that you choose folks that are going to fill up your cup, that are going to really bring to you the awareness and the action you want to create in yourself. Because being that I love psychology, that was my major, and I did not go into that.
That's so funny. I started out with psychology, even though I had said at 15 I was going to be a CPA. I took psychology. I was like, oh, I love this stuff, but I didn't do it.
Oh my gosh, I wanted to be a psychologist and went into banking at 22, and I'm in my early 40s now. So I'm young, and age is a number. It's really what you put into it. And, so today I'm losing my train of thought. So today, with the psychology, with all the information and data we have, we can change. Neuroplasticity, it's there for us to change. And it's taking those baby steps and being uncomfortable to be comfortable, to then be uncomfortable again, because we don't want to be complacent. We want to keep growing.
Well, and I think that there's a couple things that as we kind of start to wind down is like you talk about the imperfection, doing it imperfectly. And I would always ask, like, what if it's actually perfect and the imperfection is the illusion, right? Like we actually are doing it perfectly. And what you're saying as well is like being intentional, right? When we're on social media, like I follow you, you're out in nature and you're sharing, right? I see you doing that. But then we can also do the distractions, right? The TV, the social media, that's the distraction. And there are so many people out there that are sharing it freely with the world. And what I just tell people is like, go with a person that makes you feel good, that resonates with you. Because if you feel worse after watching them, you're not helping yourself. Even like there can be people side by side and saying the same thing, and one's going to resonate with me and one's not going to. And there are people like someone will say, oh, I love so and so. And I was like, yeah, I've never really just like, it just doesn't connect. And that's okay. They're not all meant to. And so it's like finding the one that just lands with you and speaks your language and just follow them. And what I've also found is it ebbs and flows. The other great thing is if you don't want to get an Audible subscription, like libraries, you can go and get a library card and they have audiobooks and ebooks that you can check out. So there is just a wealth of information out there. And I think as you were sharing even is, talking about the birthing of your business and like all of this versus destructive. Like when I get destructive, it's like, I feel like there's more, it's a death of something, right? Like I'm walking through a death and a rebirth. And so even in you and your business is, I look at it as like prosperity. I gave a talk on prosperity. And when I researched it is prosperity is a state of being. And you were talking about, you have walked through, you've birthed something, you've walked through its death, you rebirthed, and then there you were on the beach and you were like really fully, like, I think becoming aware of that, like that true prosperity, that state of being, right? And creating from that place. And, and I believe that when we do that, we're also like, we're changing the people that we're working with as well, right? Like we don't even know those ripple effects that are created by showing up from that place and that source within. And that truly is a blessing in what we're creating.
Absolutely. And that moment in time 2 years ago, people perception could be that, oh, she's making it, she's rolling in the dough. A lot of what I do is volunteer work. I choose to give my time and my love. And so that turns into currency wellness for me because I believe I'm doing my part to humanity. Now, of course, I believe also that the currency will flow as I continue to learn, to grow, to build relationships, to connect, to realize the clients I do want and the clients I don't want. Because it goes back into the energy. If people are not taking you serious in what you're doing, then we're not compatible because I'm serious. And I'm ready to not only help myself, but to help my children and to help others. And so the question is, are you ready? And so,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I personally think that that's a beautiful place to end. And I would love to pick up this conversation again in the future. So I'm sure that we will. And just like whatever closing that you want to put out there, maybe there's somebody out there that they're in this place. Like we're talking about the great resignation. And I don't believe that you have to leave your career. Sometimes it's just that inner reflection. So if there's somebody who's listening, who's out there and either questioning what it is that they've created in their life, or they're thinking about like, how do I transition? What advice do you have for them? And then if you will, just kind of share how people can get in touch with you. I'm going to put it down here on the bottom as well, but just share with them as well.
Thank you. Yes, you're not alone. There's so many amazing human beings out there that are here to serve, to help, to make a difference for you in your life. And it starts with loving yourself. Now, what does that mean? It means to take the time to reflect and see, where do you want to grow? And write that down. That alone is an amazing first baby step you can take. And then the next step is finding the folks that you want to work with. There's so much information out there that you can research everyone and anyone. And if you don't know, Robina and I, we will find you someone because it's needed. We all need help. And being honest with yourself. That's important too, because once again, no one's perfect. Everyone is going through something, and it's not a one size fits all. And social media's perception is different from what's truly happening in people's homes. So just know that you don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed, and just know that I'm no different from you. And I've gone through so many obstacles that if I got through them, so can you.
I love that. Thank you, Delfina. It's so true. And I think, like you asked, like, are you ready to get serious? And for anyone who's listening, if you are, obviously reach out to Delfina. And both of us, like she said, we have probably plenty of resources that we can share with you, and just begin to question, like, what is your own normal that you want to create in life? And maybe this comfort zone is actually uncomfortable, and the comfort lies in exploring what it is that's truly in alignment with you. So thank you, Delfina, like, for your amazing share. I always love listening to you. I love talking with you. And I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you and shared with other people. If anyone wants to reach you, I know they can find you at currencywellness.com. So,
Yes.
all right, my friends, thank you. And thank you to all our listening. Until we meet again.
Bye.
Bye.